as a young boy, it's full of dreams. You know, you say, someday I'd like to make it in this big city, you know, and it's automatic. Judy Garland lived here, Ethel Merman. They all had these dreams when they looked at this city, you know, and just said, someday I'd like to really become famous in that city. It's all about dreaming. Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. You came along and everything started to hum. Still, it's a real good bet. The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't that be fine? You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine. Wait till the warm-up's underway. Wait till our lips have met. Wait till you see that sunshine day. You ain't seen nothing yet. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't that be fine? The best is yet to come, come the day you're mine. Come the day you're mine. I'm gonna teach you to fly. We've only tasted the wine. We're gonna drain the cup dry. Wait till your charms are ripe for these arms to surround. You think you've flown before, but you ain't left the ground. Wait till the warm-up's underway. Wait till our lips have met. Wait till you see that sunshine day. You ain't seen nothing yet. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't that be fine? The best is yet to come, come the day you're mine. Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum.
If you just listen to the music of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and the influence is pretty clear. Please welcome Flea, Anthony Kiedis, and the king of funky punk, Tony Bennett.
What's going on here? Tony Bennett, urbane as ever at 70, but up for some cross-dressing with the Red Hot Chili Peppers on MTV.
I left my heart. Give it away, give it away, give it away now. In San Francisco.
It's Tony Bennett, anointed king of cool by Generation X, as big with the green hair as the blue rinse. I'm Reggie Nadelson. I was born in New York. All my life, I've had the Bennett soundtrack running in my head, the score for those Manhattan myths I grew up with. Bennett himself, though, I figured he came from someplace else. The guy who sings that song.
To be well, little cable cars. Climb halfway to the stars. The morning fog may chill the air. I don't care, my love waits there. San Francisco.
No singer's more identified with one tune than Tony with San Francisco. It's like Bing Crosby and White Christmas, Sinatra and My Way. For 35 years, he's been singing about his city by the bay.
When I come home to you, San Francisco, your golden sun will shine for me.
America's consummate crooner, those banked passions still burning beneath the tux. And Tony Bennett carries the torch for the great American songbook. Now Ella's gone and Crosby, Sinatra retired. What made Bennett the singer's singer? What's made him bigger than ever 50 years after he started? Anyway, I fell for him because he's as much of New York City as the Gershwin songs he loves or the Chrysler Building.
And everybody thinks I live in San Francisco. But my hometown is about 20 minutes from New York City, and I loved growing up there as a little boy. Astoria, Long Island, where they make the Steinway pianos. If I may, I'd love to sing a song about my hometown. It's just a little street where old friends meet. I'd love to wander back someday.
I think I have a confession to make, is which I've never been to Astoria in my life.
You're kidding?
No.
Well, it's okay. There's a lot of people put it down, but I don't, because these are the real people. They're all the best people in New York because they're the workers. You know, they're the cab drivers, they're the school teachers, the elevator operators. They're the blue-collar workers who make the city work. This is my street right here that I grew up on.
Is it much different?
Well, you know, you come back, it looked a lot bigger to me. Now it looks very small, but it's pretty much the same. And this is it right here.
Tony Bennett was born Antonio Dominic Benedetto in 1926. He was first-generation New York. It was a typical immigrant family. His father arrived from southern Italy around 1912, in the middle of the biggest migration in human history, the immigrants who gave New York its shape. His father was a grocer. The kids never spoke Italian. Grandfather didn't speak English.
He just smoked his pipe and just said buongiorno to everybody that would pass by in the morning. And he would send me up to this candy store on the corner that's no longer there, Sam's Candy Store, where we'd all gravitate, young boys growing up.
Great guy. I knew him from when? Great guy.
Thank you, sir.
Tony, it's
Okay,
great to see you.
you.
I'm so
Always.
happy for you,
Thank
believe
you.
me.
Thank you.
Keep the good work you're doing.
Thank you
fine.
very much. Thanks.
Great guy.
See, I mean, that kind of explains that this is the typical guy from Astoria. They're so friendly. Now, if you want to just be by yourself, they'll just leave you alone. They won't bother you. But if you want to talk to them, they'll just, you know, come up to you and start a chat like this gentleman just did. That's the way they are.
In 1929, when Tony was 3, the Great Depression hit. Stockbrokers sold apples. Kids went to work if they could get any. The bread lines grew. Some people figured revolution was coming. Hard times for the Benedettos meant sometimes all they had for heat were a dozen pieces of coal they could pick up at the police station if they were down on their luck.
Unfortunately, my father became ill at a very young age. Eventually, my mother became the breadwinner because he was so ill. And he died very young. Tony was only 10 when our dad passed away. I was 15, going on 16, and my brother John was 13. So Mom became the breadwinner, and I became the keeper of the boys while she worked after school. And especially with Tony, he was my little brother that I had to really keep an eye on.
He is the product of his mama, his papa, his nationality, Astoria, Queens, the American dream, the American experience. He's Frank Sinatra. He's part of all of that. Italians being mocked as mobsters. He's part of that. The snide condescension, the dago, the guinea, the wop. You know, the irritation that you have at hearing that said about your mother, your father, yourself. All of those forces.
As a kid, Tony Bennett was an altar boy, raised pigeons to make pocket money, played in the streets, went to the movies. In his memory, it's a sunny childhood in a classic New York neighborhood.
follow you all the time.
All right, thanks.
I love your music.
Thank
Nice to
you
meet
very
you.
much. Thanks.
Maybe the optimism's genetic. Maybe it was built into the immigrant experience. Maybe, like a lot of Bennett's generation who grew up in the Depression, you never complained.
Thank you very much. Stay healthy.
You revised your childhood to make it sweeter. And there was always the music.
The uncles, one played a guitar, one played a mandolin, another one played a banjo, and so that it was a very musical family. And my brother John and Tony both performed with their singing. And the older people sang the old Italian folk songs, which to this day I absolutely love.
They like to sing. They can sing, and they came out of big, crowded Italian neighborhoods where music was the... You know, the Italians are the best thing we got in this city. Came here, they like food, they like singing, they like laughter, they like love. It's terrific. You know, it's a tremendous addition. That's why this city is absolutely unbeatable. Look what we got. You know, they come in from we get the best qualities of people from all over the world, and the one big thing, the big thing is the music.
Radio was king when Tony Bennett was a kid, and the crooner came of age. His idol was Frank Sinatra, the Italian boy from Hoboken, across the Hudson on the other side of Manhattan. Tony and Frank both grew up dreaming of the same city. A local bar gave Tony a break. At 13, he was a singing waiter. And there was the uncle who encouraged the budding singer.
Because he knew I had such a passion to make it. And it wasn't until years later that I found out some of his cronies on Broadway would tell me that he would be raving about me. He said, "Where do you hear my nephew? The guy's terrific." But he would never tell. He said, "You have a rasp in your voice." He said, "You're never going to make it."
50 years after he left his heart in Astoria, Tony turned memory into music and his neighborhood into an album.
This very street, yes.
And only the tree looks a little different
Well,
here.
look how small the tree is, and over here, it was in the summertime, and look at the tree now. You can't even see. It's just grown up that big, and that's what happens in life. It just goes so fast. For it's just a little street where old friends meet. I'd love to wander back someday. I feel like George Burns. To you, it may be old and sort of tumble down, but it means a lot to folks in my hometown. It's just a little street where old friends meet and treat you in the same old way. Boom. It's just a little street where old friends meet.
For a kid who wanted to sing in the 30s, Manhattan was the magnet. A New York kid, like Tony, could feed off the buzz of a town moving into the middle of the universe. The skyscrapers went up, and in the movies, the embodiment of New York style, Fred Astaire danced down Fifth Avenue.
Stepping out with my honey, can't be bad to feel so good. I never felt quite so sunny that I keep on knocking wood. There'll be smooth sailing 'cause I'm trimming my sails with my top hat and my white tie and my tails. Stepping out with my baby, can't go wrong 'cause I'm in right. Ask me, when will that day be? The big day may be tonight. If I seem to scintillate, it's because I've got a date with a package of the good things that come with love. You don't have to ask me, I won't waste your time. But if you should ask me why I feel sublime, I'm trimming my sails with my top hat and my white tie and my tails. Stepping out with my baby, can't go wrong 'cause I'm in right. Ask me, when will that day be? The big day may be tonight. It came out of just one period of time. It was during the Depression. They were mostly written for Fred Astaire because the composers insisted that this was the man with the most eloquent taste and they'd love to have him. They wouldn't do a song unless Fred Astaire did it first. And it was Irving Berlin, George Gershwin, Jerome Kern, Cole Porter. The best, you had lyrics by Ara Gershwin, you had Larry Hart. The combination of Jewish music and black music really created the music of America.
George Gershwin, more than anyone else, wrote the euphoric soundtrack for the love affair between New York and its musicians. The stew of talent, politics, style, wit, and money that produced the great American songbook. The Jazz Age, big bands, Fats Waller, George and Ira, Rodgers and Hart, Benny Goodman, Tin Pan Alley, Broadway, Harold Arlen, Harlem, Charlie Parker, Stan Getz, 52nd Street. Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, The Cotton Club, Crosby and Fred and Ginger, Frank Sinatra and Ella, Jerome Kern, Duke and Basie, Louis Armstrong, Judy Garland, Dreaming Towers, All That Jazz, Manhattan.
Yeah, they all loved it. I mean, Charlie Parker loved New York. He would drive up and down New York City in a cab just to go from section to section of the city and just look at people, the romance of this city, the crime of it. I mean, it has everything in it.
Nature's finest sight is a crowded street, and it produces some of the, more than nature does, it produces things that we live on, and one of which is our music.
You go from extreme joy to heartbreak just by turning your head around. It'll be somebody living in a cardboard box and two people who just fell in love, dealing with each other right here in this one small area. So, you know, this city is magnificent. I can remember when I first saw New York, just the way it looks in the distance. And then you come into it and it's like you're in a big cauldron. People moving everywhere. To go on Fifth Avenue and just to see that sea of people bobbing up and down. Sun shining off all these buildings, the concrete and the steel, all the different angles and just shapes. I mean, it's just unbelievable. If the sun is at a certain place, you can just see clear down this avenue. You just have all of everything you have everywhere else, just more of it. The financial district is down at the bottom of the city, the Twin Towers, the East Side, you know, all these people, all this enormous wealth. The park, which is like a big heart in the middle of the city. You just have a range of humanity here. I can just keep going about New York. It's unbelievable.
Sinatra went west. Crosby was always L.A. Tony Bennett never left home. These days, Tony Bennett lives in the middle of Manhattan, looking at Central Park, 20 minutes from Astoria, where he was born and raised.
The people are on a good kick here. Everybody keeps saying, like, look out, this is New York. You know, I'd visit it, but I don't want to live here and all this kind of thing. It's not true. See that wonderful carriage in the street right now? And that's beautiful, you know, it's good to paint. And then you're in front of nature, and that's why I chose this apartment, because you're looking at, as David Hockney says, nature never lets you down.
I did some collage photographs, yeah. I don't think I've drawn him, but I've photographed him in different ways. He's a very generous spirit, so I've always enjoyed him, really. He told me he painted a lot under his name. He showed me some little pictures and his sketchbook he carried around. And then, and it came up, that he'd bring me up when he was in California and come up and see me. And one Christmas when my mother was there, my mother came over, must have been about, maybe 88, 89. And he came up with his daughter, who was then, probably 15 or 16. And they both sang Christmas carols for us, which was absolutely charming. My mother was very thrilled, especially at a little girl singing. And I had to explain he was a very big star, really, to my mother.
From the time he was an art student in high school, painting's been Tony Bennett's other passion. He sells his pictures for $50,000, shows at museums, makes common cause with painters like his friend David Hockney. The way he makes it all look easy, the lyrical colors, I always think David Hockney paints the way Tony Bennett sings.
It's nice, he just draws all the time. He'd obviously love to paint like Monet, like a great number of people would. Why not? Nobody gets near it. He looks out at things, sunny usually.
For the second time in a generation, the youth of America is marching off to war. But this time to new and livelier rhythms, the new style of bandsmen like Captain Glenn Miller. This is the wartime tempo of a...
Just out of high school, Tony Bennett was drafted into the Army. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge, the last big conflict of World War II. But it was something else about the war that changed the life of the kid from New York City.
The Negro soldier was engaged in the deadly business of combat. The 969th Field Artillery Battalion received the Presidential Unit Citation for its heroic achievements in the Battle of the Bulge.
There was the public relations, and there was the reality. And Tony Bennett was shocked by the racism he encountered in a still absolutely segregated U.S. Army. Near the end of the war, he invited a black GI he knew from home to Thanksgiving dinner.
All of a sudden, a Southern officer came up to me and said, "Pack your gear, you're pulling out of here." So I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, we don't like who you were sitting with." And because the man was black, I was chastised, and in a half hour I was on a truck. We went to Graves registration, where I had to dig up bodies and put them in graves. And it was like a form of punishment. It's left a thing about me of, this business of African Americans. To this day, I just look for human beings, and I just deal with them. And I don't pay attention to anybody who isn't like that.
Manhattan 46. Tony came home from war to a city that had turned into victorious Technicolor.
You were the dominant force in the world if you lived in New York, because everything else was down. Everything had been defeated except for New York and the United States of America. People were relaxed, and that's when this music grew up. That's when we found it easiest to touch one another when we danced, And he was a product of that time.
Set on a singing career, Tony plugged into the music styles of the times. And it was Louis Armstrong, as far back as the 1920s, who reinvented American music. Instrumental, vocal, the whole ball game. He took the musical genius he coaxed from a horn and laid down a style, and he created American popular singing.
As I said before, I'll be glad when you're dead.
He was just an absolute genius. He's influenced Sinatra and Lena Horne and all the great singers, Billie Holiday. You have to phrase like Louis if you're an American singer. You must phrase like Louis Armstrong.
I'll be glad when you're dead, you're right for you. I'll be tickled to death when you leave this earth, you dog. I took you for my friend.
If you don't praise like Louis Armstrong, you're just not singing American music.
Sing a song, Mr. Bing Crosby. Yeah, sing a song.
So Bing Crosby listened to Louis Armstrong, and he learned to sing American. Bing plugged into the music of the first great homegrown songwriters. He also had perfect pitch for a country that yearned to cut the ties to Europe and relax. You could say Bing Crosby was the first real embodiment of cool.
Where the blue
of the night, neath the gold of the day.
Bing created the suburbs in America. He told everybody to relax, take off your tie, let's go fishing, let's play a little golf. And Bing actually created that whole atmosphere.
But it was the invention of the microphone, along with radio and records, that made Crosby and the crooners who followed him huge. By the 40s, Bing owned the airwaves. He recorded 2,500 titles. He was the biggest singing star ever.
Bing actually created a living for all of us. I mean, he taught everybody how to sing intimately. He used the microphone. I mean, before that, you know, singers would just have to have big voices like Al Jolson. They would have to hit the back of the house like Ethel Merman. No microphones. And the microphone was so voluminous that you could just speak into it.
So Louis begat Bing, and Bing begat Sinatra.
When I look at you, a beautiful theme of every dream I ever knew.
Dance all night with me till the stars fade from above. They'll say it's all right with me.
Bing learned from Louis and handed it on to Sinatra, who passed the torch to Tony Bennett.
If you sing, you could actually feel how someone is at that moment psychologically, what they're really thinking of. And it created this new art, the art of intimate singing. The way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the memory of all that, they can't take that away from me. The way your smile just beams, the way you sing off-key, the way you haunt my dreams, they can't take that away from me. We may never, never meet again on the bumpy road to love. Still I'll always, always keep the memory of the way you hold your knife, the way we dance till 3. Who the hell do you think I am, Michael Jackson? The way you changed my life. They can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away.
Back home in New York, in the late 40s, Tony learned his trade, studied singing, tried to earn a buck, ran an elevator at a city hotel.
I mean, he came out of the city where you can make it, you know, come out of a neighborhood and something happens and you go someplace. The city was his foundation, was his cement under his feet that he stood on forever. There was a place called Charlie's. That's where all the musicians went. It was owned by an Englishman. And that's where musicians would go and they would get their mail. They could borrow money. They would get messages. It was that hangout. He was in there all the time. And the musicians would come in and say, we're going to an amateur play. They play amateur nights. And why don't you come along? I heard there's a good one. You know, to tell Tony he could come and you win the prize. Tony Bennett was in the amateur night. He did wonderfully well. And then came a guy that was dressed in a sailor uniform with a cast on his arm. And he claimed he was straight from St. Albans Naval Hospital, still wounded from the war. And he sang, and they gave him the prize because he's the wounded veteran over Tony Bennett. He was the worst freaking singer you ever heard. But there was a still patriotic fervor in the country, and the poor fellow was wounded. My bet now is, upon reflection, is that the guy never saw more water than a bathtub.
It was desperate because I lived on a dime a day. The whole thing, I stayed with in a in one room with 4 boys. The rent was $7 a week. It was on 8th Avenue over a fire station. And we all just tried to come up with the $7.
Roaming the New York streets 50 years ago, Tony dropped in on a new kind of music. This was modern jazz. This was bebop. This was Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie reinventing the world.
I didn't know who Charlie Parker was. So one Saturday night, they'd give me a seat right on the bandstand. When he played, it was so intense, it had so much feeling and so much genius. It was actually genius. That I had never heard anything so wide out of a saxophone, or so intense and so prolific. You know, he just kept playing thousands and thousands of notes that all made sense. And I had never heard anything like that. And I got so upset hearing it and so emotionally moved that I actually had to run out of the nightclub, go out in the street and throw up in the street. And then later on I found out it was the great Charlie Parker. I had no idea who it was.
Max Roach was Charlie Parker's star drummer. When Tony Bennett was growing up in Astoria looking west at Manhattan, Max Roach was growing up in Harlem looking south at the same city. Like so many star musicians, both came from immigrant families. Bennett's from Bari, Italy. Roach's from Dismal Swamp, North Carolina. Jazz came downtown to 52nd Street from Harlem, and Max Roach came with the music. He had played with Ellington at 17. Now he became one of the original stars of bebop. He's almost its last surviving witness.
Practice all day with Charlie Parker. We never realized that what we were working at, but we knew that the people who got the jobs on 52nd Street, because now it was an instrumental world, were the virtuosos of the music. So you had to be real good in order to be able to have the crowd. And it was the first time to hold the crowd. It was the first time people sat down literally and didn't dance. We now were being treated as if the clubs were like chamber rooms, small groups. And we were the stars.
Here, Lester Young.
There's Lester Young. Okay. Billie Holiday. See, they all started right across the street. They had one club after another, the Club Onyx, the Three Deuces, and Errol Garner, George Shearing, Lester Young, Billie Holiday. They all played in these little tiny clubs. And on 52nd Street, they had to have a star who would draw in people to these little clubs. These clubs had 100 seats, 120. They were elegant clubs, incidentally. And Billie Holiday was so hot if she came on the street and performed, then the other clubs would benefit by it.
Did you think it would be there forever?
At that time, I had no idea that the world would ever change that much. How you doing?
It's all gone.
It's just one insurance company after another.
In New York, Tony could listen to the best music on earth. Getting his own break was a lot harder.
I mean, for 7 years, I was just trying to get a job. I still remember the path. I would go every day to the music publishers, to agents, and try and get work on weekends. You know, every once in a while I would get some jobs. But very rarely. I got turned down so many times during auditions. It was always, you know, I used to hear, "Don't call us, we'll call you," in my sleep. I wonder when the bells ring for me and someone tugs a heartstring for me. When does it come my time? When does the poem rhyme? When do the songs they sing for me? those who say, hey, wake up and feel life. I say I'm ready, show me the way. Show me those arms that say, welcome to real life. And I'll stay, I'll stay. How many parties more can I run to? How many little loves can there be before it's all a bore? Forget it, I want more. I want someone who wants more of me. Like making promises good in the daylight. The thing is, here am I. Where is she? When is it my chance? When is it my dance? When do the bells ring for me?
1949. Tony worked part-time on the circuit, little clubs, saloons, amateur nights. People told him to get a nose job. The market was ripe for pretty boy Italian crooners with all-American names. He kept his nose and did it his way.
Pearl Bailey heard me singing down in a little club down in Greenwich Village. And she insisted to the boss, she said, I'm opening here next week, and if he isn't on my show, she said, I'm not going to come in here. I want him on my show. She was wonderful to me. And then Bob Hope came in to see her. He was at the Paramount Theater. And he liked me so much, he actually changed my name.
What was your name before?
Well, my father came from Bari, Italy, and so it was Joe Barry. And in those days, you needed a name that everybody would remember and all that. So he said, well, that's to effect it. He said, what's your real name? I said, Anthony Dominic Benedetto. So he said, well, let's Americanize you. We'll call you Tony Bennett.
The American reluctance to endure a moment's silence has been the fortune of the record industry, whose job is the somewhat precarious one of keeping 20 million U.S. turntables profitably supplied with records. An operation which requires a nice combination of business acumen, gambling sense, technical skill, and sheer lunacy.
Everybody sing.
Do I want you? Oh my, do I? Honey, did I do?
Mitch Miller was the first-rate mogul of the age of the mass production of mechanical music. Merchandising, money. He made producers powerful when no one reckoned with producers. He had as much power in New York as the movie tycoons on the West Coast. Miller molded talent to suit changing tastes. Johnny Ray, Johnny Mathis, Rosemary Clooney, and Tony Bennett.
1950, I never even met him. He was sent in a demonstration record, and it was the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. And immediately I said, this guy's got it, see?
Miller produced Tony Bennett, groomed him, made him the image of the proto-pop crooner. Tony recorded Because of You, and it shot to #1. More hits followed, and the lush balladeer became a national star. Tony Bennett played 7 shows a day at New York's Paramount, where he was mobbed by a generation of teenagers, like Sinatra before him. By the beginning of 1952, Bennett was the biggest-selling recording artist in the country.
There was a point where he had about 4 or 5 singles on the charts at the same time. One would go down and another would come up. And it was really, of course, very exciting for us.
I only live
those days, we had a group called the Bennett Tones, and they followed him all over. And wherever he played, you know, the Paramount in New York, they were all there.
It's paradise to be near you like this.
He got married, and the ceremony was at the St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. There was a whole group sitting in the back of the church with the long mourning veils that women used to wear years ago, you know, because they were so unhappy that he was getting married. They thought they had lost him, all their fantasies.
And I can smile because of you.
To me, Tony Bennett was the kid down the block who had lots of talent. Frankie Lane was a blue-collar worker who no matter how hard he worked, couldn't get out of the trough that he was in. Rosemary Clooney was the barrel house girl with a curvaceous voice who could sing any kind of song. Patty Page was a country girl, really. And, of course, Vic Damone was a Sinatra clone. And a good one, see? So, but the whole point was they would have immediate identifiability. If you didn't, every great singer, 4 bars, you know who they are.
After he signed with Mitch, there was always the tension. Bennett the apostle for class, and Bennett the cog in the Miller machine.
Tony Bennett fought doing a song called The Middle of an Island. It's a Hawaiian song, and it called up in the listener's mind, you know, the Waikiki and the hula girls, and he didn't want to do it. So I embarrassed him. I said, look, I wouldn't put out a record. I'm not here to hurt you. So just go through it once. He takes off his coat, puts the sleeves around his as a belt, and sings the song straight through, wiggling his can, and it became a hit.
In the middle of an island, in the middle of the ocean, you and I...
So Tony was hot, and Tony was Italian. And with the heat came the predictable rumors.
In a paradise for
And Tony, like a lot of Italian Americans, were extremely sensitive to the negative stereotypes. If you're Italian, you must have had somebody with a bent nose in your family and a scar on his cheek, you know, some mafioso, because that was the stereotype.
So what was going on with Bennett and the mob? There were some scary times, threats to his family, a stink bomb at a concert. But Tony Bennett toughed it out.
I mean, if you're going to sing in the Copacabana nightclub where he sang, you're not going to get booked by an Anglican minister. Isn't going to be the booking agent. There's going to be a gangster in there.
We'd work these tiny little clubs where these guys would get together and just talk. Nobody was listening to what we were doing. They were all just making deals. They were gangsters. One of the boys in the back said, "Come on, kid, sing Melancholy Baby." I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't know Melancholy Baby." Come to me, my man. I know I'd go from rags to riches if you would only say you care. Though my pockets may be empty, I'm not kidding either, I'd be a millionaire.
The gangsters can't sing, you know. They keep saying that the gangsters helped Sinatra or something. Nobody helped him. How are you going to help that voice? What, a mobster that can't say 4 words straight is going to help Sinatra sing? I mean, that's crazy. You ever hear them talk? Gee, he's good. You know, they can't even talk. What's doing?
Or will I go from rags to riches? My fate is up to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Perry Como Show.
In the 1950s, radio gave way to television. Tony Bennett was the first big singer to make it mostly on TV. It was a crucial divide.
Thank you, Perry.
You know, I don't know how you ever got booked on a show like this. It only proves one of 2 things. It's either that I've got a lot of guts or I am sick.
And I did a Perry Como show, and he gave me the summer replacement when he took a vacation. And I thought, what a great break. I mean, this big orchestra, Mitchell Ayers, and all these wonderful guest stars and everything that was on the Como show. But what happened is they left me with a bare stage, and they cut the band down to 5 pieces instead of a big orchestra. And I was in a panic. I was completely unnerved by it. I said, how am I going to, I'm going national television, and I don't know what to do. It's an hour show. I have a bare stage with very little assistance. So I went to visit Frank Sinatra. Everybody warned me. They said, look out, this guy could get very tough. So I said, I like what he's doing. I said, I like it. I knocked on his door, and he was just wonderful to me. So he said, what do you want to see me for? I said, well, I'm completely nervous about performing. I said, my knees shake when I hit the stage. I'm a very nervous guy. He said, well, don't worry about that. He said, the people never mind that. In fact, they'll support you. He says, if they see that you don't care, then they're not going to care. He says, and that would be disastrous. He said, the fact that you're nervous is wonderful. He said, he made me relax just with knowing that that's all right. And it was a wonderful insight on his part. And then he told me never to do silly songs. He said, the record company will always tell you to do some quick song that'll make a quick buck and then be forgotten. He said, never compromise. Just sing the best songs you can find. I'd love to have everybody snap their fingers. Terrific. A foggy day in London town had me low, had me down. I viewed the morning with much alarm. The British Museum had lost its charm. Thank you. How long, I wonder, could this dream last? But the age of miracles hadn't passed, for suddenly I saw you standing right there in foggy London town. The sun was shining everywhere. The sun was shining everywhere. Well, if I sing A Foggy Day in London Town, well, they can't take that away from me, or Stepping Out, everybody in the world knows it. These are America's greatest folk songs. And what folk songs? Out of any country in the world, I must say the United States has the greatest, between Broadway and movies, and then jazz improvisation that came out of the United States. We have the best folk songs in the world.
By the mid-50s, Tony Bennett was one of the superstars in the exploding business of commercial music. But he never forgot the music he'd discovered in New York that night on 52nd Street, half a dozen years before. He became the first white man to sing with Count Basie. He partied with Dizzy, idolized Duke Ellington. He compares Duke to Mozart or Bach. In the 1950s, New York was a musical small town without borders.
The business was much smaller. All these musicians knew each other. They worked the same circuits. You had bands crisscrossing the country, you know. Even in the days of segregation, they still dealt with each other. They listened to each other's albums. And out of this cauldron of activity, you produce a great musician like Tony Bennett, who, above just singing a popular song, he's a great musician. You listen to somebody and say, man, I wish I could sing like that. He sings that. You have the ongoing development of the American popular song, the Broadway shows. You have pit musicians who also are jazz musicians. You have just the way that the musicians learn from each other.
But you see, my teacher was right across the street in the brownstone, Miriam Spear, and she used to tell me to imitate the musicians rather than singers. And she would point to the awnings from her brownstone, and she'd say, find whatever musician you like there and imitate the way they... So I liked Stan Getz's Honey Sound, and also Art Tatum, the way he made a production out of simple songs. And that's how I acquired my style.
And that's a smaller version, another Columbia collection.
Tony still learns from the musicians he loves. In recent years, there have been tributes to Sinatra and Astaire, Judy Garland, Ethel Merman, Barbra Streisand.
You're my thrill, that's good.
Currently, he's boning up for an album on Billie Holiday.
Yeah, I'm pulling through. That's good. I like that one. There isn't any musician that I ever met of full competence that doesn't insist that she's the favorite singer, the best singer of all the singers. They learn how to play their instruments through her. And she learned how to sing by listening to musicians. She sang like the instruments.
Love will make you drink and gamble, make you stay out all night long. Love will make you drink and gamble, make you stay out all night long. Love will make you do things that you know is wrong.
He only met Holiday once. He was 17.
And I was in the corner just amazed that she was there, Billie Holiday, you know. And she came off and finished her set and came to the bar and had her back to me, and I was in the corner just looking at her by myself. And she just felt these vibes, so she turned around and she saw a young boy looking at her, like as a fan. And she picked up on the fact that I was a fan of hers. And she lifted up her dress and took out some money and she said, "Get me a gin." I'll never forget that as long as I live.
One of the musicians Tony teamed up with was British jazz pianist Ralph Sharon.
I came to New York in '53 and was playing with little jazz combos. I had a trio, and one day I just got a call out of the blue, would I care to play for Tony Bennett, And I said, oh, sure, that would be nice, and it was just on a phone call. And when I heard him sing, I thought, oh, this is something great, something nice. And Tony was, he said to me, would you like to continue with me? And just on a handshake, this is running into over 30 years now.
There'll be a change in the weather and a change in the sea. From now on, there'll be a change in me. My walk will be different and my talk and my name. Nothing about me's gonna be the same. I'm gonna change my way of living, and if that ain't enough, I'm gonna change the way I strut my stuff.
Tony always denies that he's a jazz musician.
There'll be some changes made.
But what it is, he's a singer with a great feel for a beat, for a jazz beat. And with Tony, it's usually the jazz background that's going on behind him, whether it's a trio or a band like Count Basie Band or something like that. And he feels that and reacts to that.
Nobody wants you when you're old and gray. There'll be some changes.
He's good. And in this music, it's not about
the kind of technique that you have to have acquired if you are what they call a so-called legitimate singer, an opera singer. Here you got to make people feel something, you know. All of us, if you don't make people feel something and react to you deep down in their gut, then, you know, it's good. You can sing in tune, or you can play in tune, or you can have all kinds of technique, but you still have to make somebody feel something. And that's what has kept Tony alive.
There'll be some changes.
By 1957, Tony was so big, so profitable to the grinding music machine, it was inevitable he'd be asked to headline a new kind of show, even if it was the wrong kind of show.
Stranger in paradise.
It was the first rock and roll show, and Chuck Wayne and I were kicked off the stage. We were booed off the stage because I was singing Stranger in Paradise.
A stranger in paradise.
They used me to get the audience in, because it was the #1 song. And it was a whole rock and roll show. It was the first rock and roll show. When this theater emptied out, all the seats were ripped. This had never happened before. All the water fountains were broken. It was complete chaos. It was a revolution. It was we actually kicked off the stage. We were booed off the stage because we were doing a ballad.
Those early warnings of rock and roll barely touched Tony's explosive career. He was on his way to his biggest hit ever.
And so, do you remember that tune?
I left my heart in San Francisco.
In 1962, Tony Bennett recorded I Left My Heart in San Francisco, and it became an anthem of longing all over the world.
To me,
to be where little cable cars.
In karaoke bars from Hawaii to Halifax, people sing along with it.
The morning fog may chill the air, but I don't care. Love waits there.
After Bing's White Christmas, it's the biggest selling record ever. In Japan, people learn English from it. Bands cover it for weddings in Thailand. And if you say Tony Bennett to someone in Bombay, they always say, I left my heart in San Francisco.
Do you, San Francisco?
your golden sun will shine for me.
For me. For me. For me. San Francisco.
Everybody has dreams and ambitions. And I think it kind of symbolizes the song. It's not really going to San Francisco. It's something that you hope to, you know, when I come home to you, San Francisco, your golden sun will shine for me, you know. It's just everybody's hoping for the best out of themselves.
I had a couple of friends that were songwriters in New York, and they used to show me these songs because they knew I was playing for Tony. And I'd look at them and say, well, this is not quite right, you know. And one time they gave me a bunch of songs, and I put them in a drawer. I was living in New York at that time. And a couple of years later, I was looking for a shirt in this drawer, and I saw this one sign that said, I left my heart in San Francisco. And I thought, well, this is funny because we're going to San Francisco. I put it in my bag, and I didn't even look at it.
And he said, it's a song about San Francisco. He said, I think if you sing it, you know, just they don't know you that well. It's the first time we're going there. He said, why don't we do this song as a piece of special material?
So we went down to the bar of the hotel we were in, and I played this for him. He said, yeah, it's Sounds quite nice. Incidentally, it was the bartender there that said, if you fellas record that, I'll buy it. So he was our first critic, you know.
It ended up being my signature song, and it's afforded me a world citizenship. I've been commissioned to sing it all over the world. I've done 6 command performances and 6 times at the White House for the various presidents.
If I hadn't looked for that shirt, it may never have happened.
I left my heart in San Francisco. High on a hill. It calls to me. To be where little cable cars climb halfway to the stars. The morning fog may chill the air. I don't care, my love waits there. In San Francisco, above the blue, and when D.C., when I come home to you, San Francisco, your golden sun will shine for me.
The long-anticipated Freedom March from Selma to Alabama's capital of Montgomery finally gets underway as Dr. Martin Luther King addresses the crowd at the starting point. Twice before, the marchers had been turned back by state troopers.
Harry Belafonte is a good friend of mine. We all grew up together in show business, and he called me up and really explained in full detail. And a lot of the American public or the world public didn't realize what was going on down south. A lot of African Americans were lynched, hanging from the trees there, and other very terrible things that went on, like burning them to death and all that. And he said, we have to change it, and Martin Luther King's going to do this march. Would you come with us?
Tony Bennett joined Martin Luther King in the epic march from Selma, Alabama.
The demonstration is peaceful. The first day, the marchers tramp a little over 7 miles.
Maybe it was the hate he saw in the army. Maybe it was his friendship with Count Basie. There was a thing between them like brothers, people said. Or maybe it was the miserable racism dealt out to other performers that got him. And so he marched with Leonard Bernstein and Sammy Davis, and they staged an impromptu concert.
They wouldn't give us a stage, and went to the funeral parlor, and they improvised the stage on top of 18 caskets. And we entertained there, and it was tragic.
It was the 60s, civil rights, but also assassinations and violence and rebellion. And the soundtrack for an angry, fractious era was rock music. The Beatles had arrived, unstoppable, inevitable, instant. The Beatles phenomenon and all that came with it destabilized the recording industry. And for a lot of stars like Tony Bennett, it now had an ominous feel.
Because I stopped recording, they wanted me to cover Janis Joplin, and I said, you do it.
The 70s were bleak. Bennett and Bell Bottoms were a lousy mix. He wouldn't do rock, couldn't do punk. He toured the world, played clubs and halls from London to Las Vegas, but his fans were middle-aged now, And for a new generation, he was yesterday's man. In a decade, he only recorded one album. It was a record with jazz pianist Bill Evans, and it would become a cult classic. But this was the worst time in Tony's life.
I had gone through a very serious divorce, and oh my God, my family was gone. Here I was on Christmas Eve all by myself, and it was the lowest I've ever felt. And right across the street, the great Duke Ellington was doing a memorial concert. I didn't know that. And I heard music, and I said, Mike, I had my television on. So I went over, and the television wasn't on. And then I heard the music, so I heard it coming through the door of the hotel. And I walked over to the door and opened it, and there Duke Ellington and Louis Bellson, who was with him, had sent up a choir of 50 people of every, race, color, creed, everybody, all different nationalities. And they were all singing to me, "On a clear day you can see forever."
Things stayed grim, though. Improv, the jazz label Tony set up, floundered. And then, with the 80s coming on, something happened.
Ta-da! Yes, to the untrained eye, it would appear that I have Tony Bennett locked in this here case. But, in truth, it is a fully operational automated Tony Bennett, of which I got the only one ever made. What's this?
Shaking the blues away.
Tony Bennett became a star for a whole new generation. The meaning of cool was reinvented. He found himself on stage with some famous puppets, became a spokesman for computers and sneakers, was lionized by Lemonheads, photographed by Leibovitz. I always was the Madonna of my era, he would say. I just didn't take off my clothes.
Body so, to and fro,
with every shake,
a lucky break.
The new age of Tony Bennett has a surprising Svengali. The marketing genius who makes it happen, who gives the star, his music, even his cool, a whole new spin, is his son, Danny.
I didn't have the idea of someday I'm gonna manage Dad. I've always had a tremendous interest in the business, having grown up in it, having played music, and it was a hobby of mine to read contracts and study, and study how other people have done it. So he was without a manager at that point, and he basically said, what do you think of us doing this together? And that's a tricky thing with father and son and working with family, and not everybody can do it. And we've always had a very good mutual respect for one another. So we both said, let's take it step by step and see how well it works, and we'll know right away.
It just changed everything. He just made sure that, I always had this kind of threat of bankruptcy, and, I was working, and I'd have these accountants who would snobbishly tell me, well, you're just doing fine, just have fun. Now, sooner or later, you're going to be bankrupt and out in the street and all that. It was very frightening. And for many years, I'd be entertaining audiences and getting all the love from them, and they've given them all the love I could give. But with the threat that it was all going to end someday, that was all false. And Danny just straightened out my life financially, and it just gets better and better, almost on a daily basis.
Do like the voodoos, listening to a voodoo melody. They shake their body so to and fro with every shake a lucky break.
Mr. Bennett, this is the pinnacle event of the decade, Mr. Bennett, and you have showed an outrageous disrespect for attire. Where's your tux?
Hey, come on now, guys, this is MTV. Get a clue.
And there were postmodern riffs about the meaning of the Bennett style. Red Hot Chili Peppers lined up for a spot of cross-dressing.
Because he's enjoyed this terrific revival of success among a very unexpected audience. I don't really understand it, because often when these things happen, it's usually to do with somebody's clothes or something. They light up, it's like those clothes are fashionable, so we like that person. But it isn't. He sings very much from the heart, and I think The songs are so very good.
I have to tell you the truth. I turned on the television one night and somebody said the new sensation, Tony Bennett. I said, "Dude, where the hell have I been?" You know, I've gone through liver trouble from listening to him drinking whiskey while he's singing. I've lost, 1,000 newspaper headlines and columns, everything late, and now they tell me he's a new sensation. I mean, it is funny. It's just, he never changed, that's all.
He's still at the height of his powers. I mean, Tony is not weak. It's not like when you play with him, you feel like, oh man, he was probably great 20 years ago, or he was probably great 40 years ago. He still has the same power and presence.
I call her Firefly.
Firefly.
'Cause oh my, she radiates moon glow. Wants none of that noon glow. Starts to glitter when the sun goes down, about 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
It's mayhem. She switches the brights up, lights up, and gives me a call. Take me to the Firefly's ball. Wow.
These days, Tony Bennett gives more than 200 concerts a year. His schedule is packed. Now he's on his way from New York to play Atlantic City.
With every shake, a lucky break, proving that there's a way to shake your cares away. If you will lose your weary blues, shake them away, shake them.
Okay, showtime, baby. Showtime.
All right, let's try something else. Let's do I May Be Wrong. I may be wrong, I think you're wonderful. I may be wrong, I think you're swell. I like your style, I think it's marvelous. See, right in there, it sounds a little hollow. It should, maybe a little touch of reverb. The rest of it is fine, like when I pull away, that's how I like it. I like it. I may be wrong, it sounds fine that way. I may be wrong, I think you're wonderful. I may be wrong, I really think you're swell. That's fine. Everything's fine, fellas. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you tonight. All right. Okay. Hi, sweetheart.
New York, that's Tony, my friend from New York. Pleasure, Tony. Pleasure.
Tony Bennett is hipness incarnate for a new generation. For me, he's the quintessential New Yorker, the best of the mythic city. His style's all his own now, jazzy, swinging, sweet. As if at 70, the last of the greats, but at the top of his talent, he has become himself. As Frank Sinatra said to him once, you can only be yourself, but you're good at that.
See you Saturday night.
All right, thanks.
In the struggle to figure out what makes him so magnificently popular now, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Everybody wants purity. Everybody wants sweetness. Most of the time, though, when it comes at you in such a mushy package, that you're afraid of it. Say, yeah, I'd like that, but she's so dumb. Or he's sweet, but he doesn't have the strength I need. Tony has managed to give you purity in a way that has no downsides, that has no weakness to it.
I'm going to give you this.
Oh, wow, great.
I'm a singer. I sing in the...
Now, where does it come from? Maybe God put it in a gene 1,000,000 years ago that stayed alive. Maybe it's environmental. Maybe it's a mother and father who really loved him. Maybe it's a community where he really felt safe. Maybe it's audiences. 1 million audiences that looked at this guy with the big nose and the great face and the wonderful voice and cheered him and hugged him and kissed him and said, we love you.
You're the greatest.
Maybe he got so much of that he was perfectly relaxed with life and was able to reflect all that love he received back on to the populations he met everywhere.
I was 20 years old. I danced with you. I swear to God.
That's great.
You sang Pennies from Heaven. I'll never forget it.
Well, thanks. Howdy. Performers should never retire. They love it too much. You wake up in the morning, you say, well, let's try this. I'd love to do this someday. And you go to work on it, and it keeps you alive, and it keeps you full of life. You don't even think of age after a while. You just keep going.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Bennett.
Maybe the only thing left to say about Tony Bennett is what his friend Count Basie said. Why change an apple?
I love the audience. I like to make them feel good. They all have problems, and it's pockets of relief for them. Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. You came along and everything started to hum. For 90 minutes, they could forget and say, gee, I really enjoyed that. Forgot my problems. It's a real good bet. The best is yet to come. I mean, I just love to entertain people. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't that be fine? You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine. Wait till the warm-up's underway. Wait till our lips have met. Wait till you see that sunshine day. You ain't seen nothing yet. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't that be fine? The best is yet to come, come the day you're mine. Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum.